Module 5, Corpus Type, Jar of Text. For last 50 years or so, corpus linguistics is attested as one of the mainstays of linguistics for various reasons. At various points in time, scholars have discussed about the methods of generating corpora, techniques of processing them, and using information from corpora in linguistic works, starting from mainstream linguistics to applied linguistics and language technology. However, in general, these discussions often ignore an important aspect relating to classification of corpora, although scholars sporadically attempt to discuss about the form, formation, and functions of corpora of various types. People avoid this issue because it is a difficult scheme to classify corpora by way of a single frame or type. Any scheme that attempts to put various corpora within a single frame is destined to turn out to be unscientific and non-reliable. Digital corpora are designed to be used in various linguistic works. Sometimes these are used for general linguistic research and application. Some other times they are utilized for works of language technology and computational linguistics. The general assumption is that a corpus developed for certain types of work is not much useful for works of other types. Such assumption is false in the sense that a corpus developed for a specific kind of work can equally be fruitfully used for many other works. Therefore, it is better to assume that function and utilization of a corpus is multidimensional and multidirectional. For instance, corpus developed for compiling dictionaries may be used for writing grammar books, developing language teaching materials, and writing reference books also. Due to such reasons, people are often hesitant to classify corpora in any scheme. Why classify corpora? Each corpus is developed following certain methods of language representation, text collection, and text application. These make a corpus distinct in form, content, feature, and function from others. Taking these factors into consideration, I propose to classify corpora into various types based on the factors relating to their form, content, and utilization. Systematic classification of corpora can provide language users the following advantages, not possible to achieve in any other way. Language users can easily identify appropriate data from texts of suitable areas and domains of language use from corpora. Linguists can use particular corpus they think useful for their works. For this, they do not need to grope in the dark. Dictionary makers wanting to compile dictionaries did not be confused with selection of corpus. They can select general and special corpora if they find prior information about the types of corpus they need to have for their works. For application specific requirements, people can try with general as well as special corpus without toiling hard in labyrinth of corpus types. Terminologists can use special corpora to extract relevant lexical items or necessary information for the collection of jargons as well as scientific and technical terms. Domain-specific investigators can retrieve necessary linguistic data and information from special corpora. Investigators wanting to study normal speech patterns of native people can access a general speech corpus rather than other corpora. If corpora are not classified, users have to refer all corpus types before selecting the required one. It consumes much time, energy, and labor due to internet complexities involved into it. Classification of corpora enhances speed and accuracy of comparative studies across corpus types. If speech and text corpora are kept separate, comparative studies between the two may become more robust and effective. Classification of corpora makes us comfortable for comparing data stored in each corpus. We can systematically observe traits of similarities and the marks of differences between the two types. If corpora are mixed up, comparative study becomes complicated while observations become defective. Taking such advantages into mind, I present here a tentative scheme of classification of corpora. In this context, the following are the most important factors. Minimum conditions need to be fulfilled for a collection of a language data to be considered as a corpus before it is put to classification. Identity of corpora of ordinary language use should be kept separate from the corpora recorded in artificial language use. Both of the factors need to maintain a balance. If the criteria proposed below are considered adequate, we assume that considerable progress is made, because there are large collection of language databases which are called also corpora, which do not meet these conditions. Also, there are some corpora which record spatial and artificial language samples. Besides, branch of corpus linguistics is developing rapidly. As a result of this, regular norms and assumptions are revised at quick successions. Therefore, classification of corpora is made maximally flexible to meet such unstable conditions. Digital corpora of various types with regard to texts, languages, modes of data sampling, methods of generation, manners of processing, and nature of utilization. For instance, a corpus may contain sample of written text, while other one may contain only samples of spoken text. A corpus may preserve text samples from present-day language, while others may store samples compiled from age-old text and ancient documents. A corpus is monolingual by way of collecting data from a single language, while others are bilingual by way of including text from two languages, or multilingual by way of including samples from more than two languages. Text included in a corpus may be collected from a particular source, from a whole range of sources belonging to a particular field, or across the fields or subjects of a language. Text samples may be obtained from newspapers, magazines, journals, periodicals, and similar other forms which are different from the standard literary and scientific texts. Text samples may also be compiled from extracts of impromptu conversations, spontaneous dialogues made of monologues, or from interactive discourses of varying length. This implies that there are numerous needs and factors that control content, type, and use of a corpus. This also signifies that the kind of text included as well as the combination of various text types may vary among the corpora. Taking all these issues under consideration, we broadly classify corpora based on the following criteria: corpus type, genre of text; corpus type 2, nature of data; corpus type, type of text; corpus type, purpose of design; corpus type, nature of application. In the following sections, the first type is corpus is discussed briefly with reference to the corpora developed so far in various languages. The remaining four types are discussed in next four modules with adequate examples and explanations. Genre of text. Following this criteria, genre of text, language corpora may be classified broadly into three types, namely text corpus, speech corpus, and spoken corpus. A text corpus, by virtue of its genre, contributes only the language data collected from various written, printed, published, and electronic sources. In case of printed materials, it collects text from published books, papers, journals, magazines, periodicals, notices, circulars, documents, reports, manifestations, advertisements, bullets, placards, festoons, and many other sources. In case of non-published materials, it collects the text from personal letters, personal diaries, written family records, old manuscripts, ancient legal deeds and wills, and other things. Thus, samples of various texts obtained from both published and non-published sectors constitute the central body of a text corpus. Some examples of text corpus are the British National Corpus, the Bank of English, the American National Corpus, the Australian Corpus of English, the Wellington Corpus of Written and New Zealand English, the Brown Corpus, the Loeb Corpus, the Kolhapur Corpus of Indian English, the Flob Corpus, the Bank of Swedish, the TDL Corpus of Indian Languages, and others. These corpora are made with text obtained from written texts only. In early years of corpus generation, there was virtually little scope for including text samples from digital sources in a corpus, since such text samples were not easily available. However, the situation is gradually changed within the last few years. Now, we can find out huge amount of written texts from various digital sources to be included in the text corpus. There are many websites, home pages, web pages, internet links, blogs, etc., from where we can collect data for generating a corpus of written texts. Moreover, there are electronic journals, newsletters of various types, from where text samples can be collected and for generating a written corpus. The following diagram presents a sample of the written corpus from the Kolhapur Corpus of Indian English. There is a debate regarding inclusion of texts written to be delivered in speech, that is, narration, into text corpus. Also, debate arises with regard to the status of text used in scripts and plays in relation to their inclusion in a text corpus. Should we include samples from these sources into a text corpus? It is really a difficult question, since it is almost impossible to decide in a definite way in which group these texts should actually belong to. If we take into consideration the basic linguistic modality used in generation of these texts, we find that these texts have a right to be included in a text corpus. Also, read-out writings, lectures delivered in seminars, notes circulated in class or office, etc., all the meant for listening, are actually composed following the general norms of writing. Moreover, such texts, although delivered in spoken form, do not have the features of normal dialogue or conversation. An example of a public speech such as, "Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is a great delight to inform you that government has decided to implement mass literacy program for the benefit of the nation," does not contain the features typical to impromptu speech. It is quite relational to include it in the text corpus, since it is generated fast in the written form. A written text may be read out, but its expression changes due to change of medium. Therefore, it is primarily a written text. On the contrary, if we take the purpose of composition into our consideration, we may argue that these texts should belong to speech corpus only. The general argument is that these texts are composed not for reading but for speaking. The scripts composed for films and plays are made in such a way that these are suitable for the characters to communicate verbally. Similarly, lectures composed for public oration are made in such a way that these are suitable for open verbal deliberation before the audience. Therefore, these texts should not be put within a text corpus pile. Similar argument stands valid for the notes dictated and delivered in class. However, before we take any decision regarding the actual status of such texts, we need to analyze the text from various angles with serious considerations of the linguistic and non-linguistic properties interlinked with those events. A few years ago, written text written in English, German, Spanish, French and other advanced languages were easily available in huge amount in the internet. But text written in Indian languages were rarely found in the net. In fact, due to certain orthographic problems relating to Indian scripts, written text in Indian languages were very difficult to procure from the cyber world. Due to such technical snag, Indian corpus linguists are not in a position to generate a text corpus by a quick collection of data from web sources. However, the situation is rapidly changed. At present, some resources are indeed available in the net for Indian languages, thanks to the advancement done in the area of putting Indian text in Siberia. In this context, some people are interested to include text samples taken from personal emails in a text corpus. However, we are highly sensitive in this regard. We argue that text composed in personal emails should not be included in a general text corpus, since samples derived from those sources possess certain criteria which are hardly observed in text composed in regular, imaginative and informative writings. Email texts are primarily skewed and greatly distracted from the actual form and texture of general written texts. Therefore, we should better identify a special category, namely the email corpus, where such texts should be preserved and special type of investigations and analysis can be carried out on them. Speech corpus. A speech corpus, in contrast to a text corpus, contains text samples obtained from verbal interactions. Technically, speech corpus refers to texts which are available in audio form. That is, the speakers involved in a speech corpus should behave in an oral mode. An important type of speech corpus is an experimental corpus, which is assembled for studying fine details of spoken language. Such a corpus is small in size and is produced by asking informants to read out passages in an anarchic chamber, an echoic chamber. A speech corpus is a collection of spoken data typically recorded in specific setting for specific purposes by specific users. For instance, the speech corpus speech data CAR is designed for developing an interactive system for direct consumer application. Usually, such a speech corpus lacks the richness of linguistic features normally found in regular spoken text. At the time of developing a speech corpus, it is kept in mind that samples are natural, informal, conversational and impromptu in nature. By its default value, a speech corpus is entitled to contain samples of private and personal talks, formal and informal discussions, debates, instant talks, impromptu analysis, casual speech, face-to-face conversations, telephonic conversations, dialogues, monologues, online dictations, instant addressing and many other types. There is no scope for external involvement, since the aim of a speech corpus is to display the basic characteristics of a speech act in a most faithful manner. A speech corpus, for example, may contain text samples from various types of speech events occurring in regular normal life and living, such as common talks, telephonic exchanges, casual speeches, proceedings of courts, interpretation at police stations, calls on roads, bargaining at markets, talks in social functions, festivals and celebrations, exchange of talks in classroom, gossips among friends in malls, love talks between lovers, cattle lectures of cattle, etc. Text collected from such sources will properly attest the actual form and nature of formal normal speeches. Some examples of authentic speech corpus are London Lund Speech Corpus of Spoken English, American Speech Corpus, Edinburgh University Speech Corpus of English, Korean Speech Corpus, Cantonese Speech Corpus Database, SmartCom Multimodal Speech Corpus, Speech Corpus of London Teenagers, and many others. The most important questions relating to speech corpus generations are the followings: how a speech corpus should be designed and developed, and language of which community or group will be represented. These are tricky questions indeed, which have no straightforward answers, particularly in the Indian context. To solve problems of representing speech of a community or a group, we propose to pay emphasis on generation of speech corpus for each language variety, including the standard and the regional ones. Practical constraints like lack of financial support, technical know-how, trained manpower, linguistic motivation, social inspiration, political encouragement, etc. may stand as barriers on the path of such projects in Indian context. Therefore, considering the facilities and conditions available, we argue for developing speech corpus first for the standard variety of each national language included into the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India. Priority may be diverted towards other languages and language varieties after generation of corpora in each Indian national language. The next question relates to several issues: from which sections, sectors, and domains speech data are to be collected. Experts have furnished various arguments about this particular issue. According to some scholars like Sinclair, speech samples should be taken from those sources and domains which are considered to be standard and universally accepted by most of the people of the speech community. For instance, text from news broadcasting and telecasting, language used in official and formal situations, in court proceedings, in college and university lectures, in classroom teachings, etc., may be included in a speech corpus. The reasons behind the selection of text from these sources are that these samples are suitable to reveal the actual standard form of the spoken version of a language used by people. Moreover, analysis of these standard speech data will produce almost all the salient features of the spoken form. Moreover, if required, these data may be used in classroom teaching for teaching discourse patterns in spoken interactions, pronunciation of sounds, words, and sentences of language learners. Moreover, the corpus may equally be useful for teaching language to foreign learners. However, these arguments are strongly contradicted by scholars like Leach and others. According to them, if a speech corpus is designed with data of standard form only, there will be no scope for variety in the corpus. Moreover, it will fail to represent numerous varieties normally found in regular speech. It is therefore not logical to generalize the speech habit of an entire speech community with a small set of text samples collected from the standard spoken form. If we do this, we will not only fail to account for the peculiarities observed in different speech patterns of people, but also will deprive large number of common speakers from representing their speech data in the corpus. Therefore, speech text samples should be taken from all possible domains of spoken interactions to represent the people coming from all walks of life, irrespective to profession, education, class, ethnicity, age, and sex. It will contain equal amount of data spoken by children as well as spoken by students of schools and colleges, by workers of offices, courts and business, by people of various other professions. Similarly, text samples will come from the interrogations conducted at police stations, debates held in parliaments, quarrels taking place in markets and roads, etc. In sum, language spoken by varieties of people should have proportional representation into it. Only then it will reflect on the internal form and the nature of speech by maximum representation. According to us, both formal and informal speech data should be included in a speech corpus to make it maximally representative of the speech. While formal speech samples will include text from radio and television newscasts, public announcements, audio advertisements, dialogic interactions, interviews, verbal surveys, pre-recorded dialogues, scripts of films and plays. Informal data will include samples of text obtained from various verbal interactions casually enacted in regular course of life and living. Thus, equal representation of speech texts will make a speech corpus balanced, non-skewed and properly representative of the target speech community. A speech corpus should be made in such a way that it is able to balance between demographic and contextual varieties. While demographic variety accounts for age, gender, profession, birthplace, education, economic condition, ethnicity, etc. of speakers, contextual variety accounts for all types of variations observed in speech events taking place at different times, spaces, agents and events. A speech corpus made in this process faithfully represents actual nature and form of a speech event. Thus, it builds basis for representativeness and diversion, two important features of speech corpus for providing reliable information and clues for proper analysis and interpretations of spoken discourse. The following diagram, a sample taken from the corpus of London teenagers, shows which is produced to understand how a speech corpus is designed and developed. For convenience of understanding, let us assume that we want to develop a speech corpus for standard spoken Hindi. Let us also hope that it will preserve all the salient features required for a speech corpus to be maximally balanced, representative and useful for studying Hindi speech. Now the question is how we are going to develop such a speech corpus. In this case, the method employed for other speeches may be useful with necessary changes. Normally the methods which are used for collecting spoken texts in digital form include the following stages. Stage 1, recording of spoken text in digital tape recorders, recording spoken interactions in videotapes, transcribing spoken text into written form, transcribing spoken text into notations used in International Phonetic Alphabet, annotating text with phonetic, orthographic, grammatical, demographic and contextual information, preparing detailed data about the extralinguistic information relating to spoken text and interactions, preparing detailed glossary of spoken texts, translating text into another widely known language. It is normally argued that informal and impromptu speech is the most important variety of all because it has the closest representation of the core of a language. Informal speech corpus, in principle, contains texts from informal, impromptu conversations. It reveals all the characteristic features of speech in a reliable and lively way that no other variety can probably do. The controversies relating to selection of speech text samples need urgent clarification. We are not sure how a speech corpus is considered as impromptu or identified as informal one. In fact, these questions need to be addressed first before we actually tag speech samples with such stickers. We are not also sure whether one encompasses texts either for oral deliberation or for silent reading or for both. The truth is, informal and impromptu speeches are most difficult and expensive things to acquire and are highly complicated to classify and manage. Also, complexities are involved in transcription of such speech, since there is hardly any consensus about the conventions of transcription. The method and standard proposed in Greenbaum and Quirk in 1990 while developing Lund speech corpus of English is greatly revised and modified at the time of developing Swedish speech corpus nearly 10 years back. As a result, we have no definite guideline to follow for collecting speech data. However, the present trend of corpus research implies that linguists have liberty to select type and amount of speech data independently, taking into consideration the need of specific research and application potential of the work. Spoken corpus. The term spoken corpus is carefully used to distinguish it from a speech corpus. A spoken corpus, in principle, is a technical extension of a speech corpus. Definitely, it contains texts of a spoken language, but in a different mode and formation. Text samples in a spoken corpus are stored in written form, transcribed directly from spoken texts. Also, sometimes it is tagged with various annotations relating to normal utterance of speech. Some examples of spoken corpus include the Lancaster IBM Spoken English Corpus, the Emotional Prosody Speech and Transcription Corpus, the London Lund Corpus, the Wellington Corpus of Spoken New Zealand English, the International Corpus of English, etc. In these corpora, speech texts are transcribed and preserved in written form without changing the text at the time of transcription. Spoken corpora are annotated with prosodic or phonetic transcriptions. If spoken corpora are preserved as sound waves as well as transcribed versions, then a single text exists in two versions to generate a special kind of parallel corpora. Although not many examples of phonetically transcribed spoken corpus exist, these are useful addition to the class of annotated corpora for linguists who lack technological expertise for analyzing recorded speech. In the diagram below, a sample of spoken transcribed corpus from the Lancaster London corpus is given. Despite the wide experience gained in compilation and annotation of text corpora, the works relating to generation and annotation of spoken corpora have not become simplified. Spoken texts involve many aspects that need extra care at the time of text collection and annotation. The transient nature of spoken text is offered as an explanation for justifying the complexities involved with collection of spoken texts. Even capturing spoken text is not an trivial task, as it involves various issues of demography, linguistics, and technology. Once an audio data is collected and stored in digital form, it involves production of transcription of the text in both orthographic and phonetic forms for their utilization. That means processing of spoken texts involves text segmentation, orthographic annotation, prosodic annotation, part of speech tagging, lemmatization, parsing, etc., which are built upon transcription of speech texts. The problems that are often encountered in processing spoken text are the following. Experience of working with text corpora have marginal value to deal with the idiosyncrasies found in spoken text corpus. Since there is little experience and knowledge available for transcription of spoken text, it is necessary to develop benchmarking procedures, techniques and guidelines for speech text transcription. Tools for automatic, supervised or semi-supervised transcriptions spoken text need to be designed for all languages. Systems and methods should be developed for implementation of annotation on spoken text in a uniform manner on all speech varieties. Schemes for spoken text transcription have to be designed in such a way that it is possible to revert to speech data easily from the transcribed version of text. Standards of annotation developed for spoken corpus of one language may be customized to cater the needs of spoken corpus of other languages. Due to complexities involved in compilation and annotation, spoken corpus has brought linguistics and speech technologists under one platform. Ideally, a spoken corpus addresses needs of these people, although there are conflicts of interests. For example, the quality of recording of spontaneous conversation in noisy environment is highly interesting data and useful for linguists, but it appears to be useless to the researcher of speech recognition and speaker identification. Given below is an annotated spoken corpus tagged with features of spontaneous data and syntax. To conclude, it is well known that speech is historically prior to text. We know that speech is primary while writing is secondary, for the reasons that children acquire speech first and illiterate people use language without having skill for writing and reading. Thus, primacy of speech over text clearly shows that speech is the basic medium of linguistic expression without regard to how language evolved and children acquire language. All these arguments are furnished here to substantiate our claim that since spoken and written texts are characteristically different from each other with regard to their form, function and composition, corpora developed from these two different types of text should not be merged together to produce a general corpus. Rather, each type of text should be kept in a separate corpus so that their future use in linguistic studies and their application in different domains of linguistic technology is more useful and trouble-free. Thank you.